Hi friends, welcome to Raising Lifelong Learners. I'm your host, Colleen Kessler, and this is the podcast where I encourage you to trust yourself and your differently wired kiddos as you help cultivate their curiosity, encourage them to discover the world around them, embrace who they are wired to be, all while helping them discover their passions, interests, and raise them to become the amazing adults they're meant to be. Hey, welcome back. This is episode 237. Today we are talking about setting boundaries in your homeschool and what that means, what that looks like, and how you can do it in a way that helps you facilitate a stronger homeschooling environment, stronger relationships with people around you, and relationships within your home. Sometimes that idea of setting boundaries sounds a little out there and you don't know exactly where to get started. And so we're going to talk about some concrete examples and suggestions for getting going with that whole idea right now. And we're going to focus a little bit too on what it looks like if maybe you've got neurodivergent kids on top of neurotypical or just all neurodivergent kids. How are the boundaries going to look a little bit differently for you? So before we get started, a special thanks, as always, to CTC Math, our season-long sponsor. We appreciate them so much. They are a great company and a phenomenal math curriculum. So check them out, ctcmath.com. And we're going to get right on with today's episode after this word about our other sponsor this month, Night Zookeeper, a great gamified writing curriculum, language arts curriculum that your kids are going to love. So check it out, listen, and then we'll be right back with today's episode. Okay, are you looking for something to kind of shake up what you're doing for language arts? Night Zookeeper just might be the answer for you. We have used Night Zookeeper in the past, but we're back in it this year with my youngest, Isaac. He is just about to start jumping in again, and I'm excited to be able to share on social media some of the things that he's doing with it. But Night Zookeeper is a game-changing language arts program that takes the stress out of teaching because it's fun, it's engaging. Your kiddo is going to love it because it's different than other things. It teaches your child spelling, grammar, punctuation, vocabulary, reading, and writing through a pre-planned language arts curriculum that your kiddo can use independently. I love this because a program like Night Zookeeper frees me up to do one-on-one help with another kiddo while one is doing Night Zookeeper independently. And then, so when Isaac's doing this, he can jump in, he can learn, he can write, he can engage with the word games and the interactive video lessons and the cool, fun, inspiring writing prompts. And then if he gets stuck or he wants to share something with me, he can pause and come get me and I can go help him, but I don't have to sit there and do it all from start to finish. And let me tell you, having some of those kinds of programs in your back pocket when you are a crazy busy mom of gifted, twice exceptional, and otherwise neurodivergent kiddos is a game changer because you can take it on the go. You can bring your tablet with you. Your kiddos can access it from the computer in the family room or the laptop on the go or their Chromebook or whatever. And okay, so here's something super cool. Your kiddo is going to get written feedback on their writing from real tutors. So if they need support or they need to be working on something or they need to add some more describing words or they're messing up their punctuation, you don't have to be the bad guy. I know I'm the bad guy often in my house when I'm trying to get my kids to understand a certain concept. And here you have real tutors at your disposal helping you by assessing and taking a look at your kiddos' writing and giving them feedback. Thousands and thousands of homeschool parents have found success using Night Zookeeper to transform their children's attitude towards language art and writing in particular, and you're going to love it. It's perfect for ages 6 to 12. If you've got an advanced kiddo, you could start them earlier on it. If you've got a kiddo who needs a little bit more support with their reading, writing, vocabulary, or other language arts skills, you can let them jump back into it or stick with it a little bit longer. However you need to use the program, you've got this. Okay, so if you're ready to say goodbye to the stress of teaching language arts, give Night Zookeeper a try. Just head on over to rll.bz/nightzookeeper, rll.bz/nightzookeeper, all lowercase letters, and you can get a 7-day free trial and 50% off an annual subscription. You cannot beat that. If you can't remember that link, rll.bz/nightzookeeper, you can also head over to the show notes for this episode and find the link there. All right, are you ready? Let's get on with today's episode. Okay, so the topic for this podcast came about in a conversation that we had in the Learners Lab during a Q&A. One of the moms whose family are members asked a question about boundaries and asked if we could talk about that a little bit. In fact, in April, the theme for the Learners Lab is going to be boundaries. We're going to talk to kids about how to set appropriate boundaries, time boundaries, physical boundaries, boundaries with the things that they want to do, their morals, values, all different things, as well as the adults. How do we set boundaries as parents, as mothers, as fathers, as husbands, as wives, as friends, as daughters and sons? What do we do when there are so many pulls for our attention? And this particular question came about because this mom was feeling pulled in so many different directions. She wanted to be there for her kids. She wanted to really make their homeschool thrive, but she felt like something was always coming along to derail her day, whether that was a need that one of her neurodivergent kiddos had going on, or somebody knocking on the door, or a phone call that took her out of her focus for the day, or whatever. It just felt like she was going in so many different directions and she wasn't getting anything done, let alone thriving in homeschool and parenting like she wanted to be. And so we're tackling this topic on a podcast episode because I think it's important for everyone who's listening, whether your kids go to school or are homeschooled. And I know most of the listeners either homeschool their children or plan to or are hoping to or do a hybrid of some sort. And you've got a lot of pulls on your attention or on your time. And so I want to make sure that we're thinking about this as we go through our homeschooling. And we're not beating ourselves up when it gets out of whack, right? I was having a conversation with a friend actually this past week, we were talking about balance, and I get teased about this. Okay, so years ago, I was at a business conference. It was a conference for homeschoolers who run their own businesses, and it was wonderful. I was speaking at the conference because I'm on the team and I've helped facilitate it throughout the years, along with the founder and some other great team members that I've stayed really close friends with. But I was talking to the assembly, the group who was there, the attendees, about managing parenting and business and, just working and then homeschooling on top of it. And at the time, I almost didn't go to the convention. My father-in-law had just passed away, and the convention or the conference came up or was scheduled, and I would have stayed home, but we realized that with certain family members who needed to be there for the arrangements, that we weren't going to we weren't going to have the visitation and the funeral until the following week. And so going on, keeping on was the best thing for our particular children at the time. So we split them up. I took 2 of them with me to this conference because, like I said, I'm friends with with the conference organizers and other people there. And then my husband took 2 of them and spent time with the rest of the extended family during that time. And then we came, back together at the end of the weekend. And it was actually really good because we would have been just sitting around, all 6 of us, wallowing in the loss of a great, great man. But while I was at this conference, my talk was supposed to be, it was a keynote, and it was supposed to be about, managing all these things. And here we were in the midst of managing all the things when the rug was pulled out from under us. At the time, we'd been planning on buying a new house. In fact, we had just signed papers not that long before with the intention to bring my father-in-law in to live with us. And he was going to live with us, live out the rest of his life. His cancer at the time, we thought, was in remission, and he took a turn right after we signed the papers and passed away suddenly. Then we ended up burying him on the day that we got our keys to this house that we had purchased specifically so we'd have enough room and be convenient enough to his family and friends to bring him in with us. And as I was up there speaking, I said, the whole balancing thing is a myth. People talk about finding balance all the time. Parents are always seeking balance. Homeschooling moms are always trying to balance the learning with the doing and the playing and the parenting and the loving and the fun. And adults are trying to balance the work and home life. And the thing is, we're kind of being sold this false narrative that it's achievable, because it's not. If you're doing something and you're all in on it, you're not doing something else. Every day we make series of choices that all meet some need or fulfill some goal while leaving others on the table. I'll give you a practical example. I just finished working on a book. Again, you'll be hearing about it a lot because I'm so excited about it. It's called The Homeschool Advantage, a child-focused approach to raising lifelong learners. It is all about how I believe you are the best teacher for your kids, you're the best parent for your kids, that there are no mistakes and we have the exact kid we're supposed to have and we are the exact parent they need to be successful. And there's lots and lots and lots of practical suggestions to help you have the homeschool and the parenting life you want. But while I'm writing a book, that's a big, big project. While I'm writing a book, I can't do other things. Back when I wrote 100 Backyard Activities that are the creepy, crawliest, dirtiest, creepy, crawliest, funnest, I don't know, ever. I can't remember all of the adjectives I used on that book's title. But back when I was writing that book, we actually dropped the co-op that we were in. We didn't go back the second semester because it was just too much with all the researching and the testing of experiments and the photographing of experiments and the writing and the, spending some time with my kids too, and, maybe talking to my husband in passing. We just couldn't do a co-op too, especially one that I had to plan classes for. And so we took a break from it. And this time with this book was very research heavy, and I talked to families. I got lots of anecdotes from people, and it was very labor intensive, and it was being written during a time that we had a lot going on in our lives, some big things that I haven't really talked about because they're not all my stories to tell. But suffice it to say that my already limited time was even more limited. And so we ate a lot of frozen prepared meals. We ordered a lot of pizza. We relied on a twice a week cleaner to actually declutter and clean my house, not just clean the stuff that I'd already cleaned and straightened to put away. We relied on paper products and plasticware, so there was a limit to the dishes. We relied on the help of others to get kids where they needed to be, and we said no to things. Lots and lots and lots of things. And spent more time around the house and less time going to outside activities. And so during that time, there was no such thing as balance. It was me working, my kids doing as much independently as they could. Now, some of this is more doable for me than some of you listening because I have my youngest is 11. But balance wasn't happening. And so I know that's a season. If I'm working on a big project, the season dictates that other things have to give. And so when I was in this talking about, this rug being pulled out from under us and trying to just do the next right thing, and the next right thing for this particular situation was to be here giving my talk as planned while 2 of my children came with me, and 2 of my children stayed home with my husband to do other things to get their mind off of it. And I said to those in the audience that, there is no such thing as balance. It's a myth. And if you leave this conference thinking that you have to balance the owning a business, running a business, working, homeschooling, parenting, wifing, that you're expected to do in perfect harmony, you're setting yourself up for failure. I said, everything's a juggling act. And our job is to drop the balls we need to, or set the balls down that we need to set down when we need to set them down, and avoid dropping or breaking the balls that mean the most. So what means the most to you? The thing that means the most to me is my family. That's the ball I'm not going to drop. So that's why during this fall, you didn't see me much on social media. I posted sporadically, not regularly. I'm just starting to get back to a plan to actually show up on Instagram for you and Facebook for you and anywhere else that you need me to show up, to give you short snippets and tips to help inspire you to keep doing the homeschooling thing. But that was gone. I didn't do that. I reshared some things because I could manage at the end of the day to scroll my Instagram feed and see what my friends were up to. And I could share some of those things as inspiration for some of you. I have not talked to many of my friends that I used to talk to multiple times a week on an app that I use called Voxer. And really, really good friends I care about a tremendous amount. Friends that I miss and I feel like maybe I offended them by dropping off the face of the earth. Sometimes boundaries look like dropping off the face of the earth so you can be all in for your family and what's going on for them. At that time, I needed to fulfill my contractual obligation to get the book done. Furthermore, I wanted to because it's a passion project on top of a project that I was contracted to do. And then I had to spend the majority of the rest of the time that my kids needed me with my kids and with my husband. And so that's what had to happen. So the balls I dropped or let go of were social media, were reading books for pleasure. Hey there. Okay, so you've heard me talk about CTC Math a lot on this podcast and in my newsletter because CTC is the math program we use and we love. I am a subscriber. I paid for my own subscription. I've been a customer for years. My children use it. I love CTC because it's adaptable. It is taught to mastery. It shows you their mastery level. You can move on when kids learn something. You can go backwards if they need extra help with something. You can do a couple grade levels in a year if you need to. You can skip grade levels. Every subscription includes access to K through calculus. So you can use whatever part you need. You don't have to be locked in to one grade level. I love, love, love that. I also love the people behind the company. They stand behind their product. If at any point you feel CTC is not working out for you, reach out to them and they will help you. They will get you squared away. They will help figure it out so you can be successful. And if you still don't think it's going to work for you, they'll give you your money back. You really can't lose using this program. It's the best there is. It really, truly is. It's the most adaptable, the most cost-effective, and the greatest people. So check them out, ctcmath.com, and let them know I sent you because I want them to know how much we appreciate them. People have written in, like my friend Carol, to tell me that they are grateful that they heard about CTC Math because they had a kiddo who just wasn't moving forward. And by being able to kind of game the system and skip the areas that they already knew and move ahead towards other grade levels and complete a couple in a year, made their kid motivated. And so Carol reached out to tell me that she was grateful that she'd heard about CTC. If you have a story like Carol, I'd love for you to share it with me. Just hit reply in any of my newsletters or go over to the show notes for this episode where you can find a link to CTC Math and you can find a link to my contact page so you can reach out and let me know what you think about them because I would love to hear who else is finding success with CTC. If you're having any trouble with the program, reach out to CTC because they're great and they will help you in any way you need. All right, check them out, ctcmath.com, and let's get back with today's episode. Before we dive deeply into the boundaries thing, I just want you to remember that sometimes things have to give. And that season might look like a handful of months. It might look like a couple years. It might look like a grade level. It might look like a day, a week, whatever. Sometimes things have to give. We've had a very rough couple of years, really rough. And things have given, they've ebbed and flowed. But if I keep at the forefront of my mind the things that are the most important and hold those boundaries. Being there for my kids, shutting things down when they need to come in. I work late at night. I'm recording this episode at midnight because I've spent most of this evening with my kids because they've needed various things. And last night I was up super late with one of my kids, and I know that I want to hold space for them, and that is a boundary that I have set. And sometimes that means work has to wait. Now, I also have a boundary around work. Certain things have to get done on certain days. So there are times that I say to my kids, I need a few minutes. You can come back and check in with me at this time. And so setting those boundaries is really important. Here's the thing. We are juggling a lot as homeschoolers. And then if you are a working homeschool mom like I am, you're juggling even more. It is a challenge to balance all of the roles and responsibilities that we have as parents and homeschoolers. And so we need to make sure that we know what's most important and we hold that at the forefront, and we build and establish boundaries to help us be successful. And by that, I mean identify your non-negotiables in your life. What are the things that are the most important in your life? What are the most important things about your homeschooling, your time, your attention, your energy? Identify those and set those boundaries around them. Maybe it's that you have a certain time of the day that you are best, you are your sharpest. And that's the time, if you're a working mom like me, you need to work. And you need 2 hours a day that you're working. That is your work boundary. Don't answer texts. Don't talk to your kids during that time unless there's an emergency, obviously. And depending on your kids' ages, you need to remember your own personal circumstances. And with this is just some ideas for you, right? These are just some ideas for you. So set a boundary around that, your work time. Be all in. Be all in on your work time so you can get your work done. And maybe if you don't have a work job, a paying job, maybe that your work time is catching up on one of the hobbies you love to do, or catching up on your meal planning and your organization and your homeschool planning because you're a planner and you need that time. Set the time for it and hold it steady, and then protect it. Don't do other things at that time or expect that others can derail you. Set it and keep it and protect it. And communicate this to your kids. Maybe that's the time where they watch a movie. Maybe that's the time that it's quiet time. When my kids were younger, quiet time meant, my working time meant that they were having quiet time. And so you might need to do something like that. Then if you're somebody who is looking to homeschool in a certain way or a certain structure, or you want to instill a routine, stick to your routines. That means sometimes you have to say no to things, or not answer the doorbell, or not answer the phone. I remember when I first started homeschooling, I had a family member who really, really did not understand or actually care to understand that the time we were at home was not us all just being stay-home kids and parents. It was a time for work and a time where we wanted to focus on things. And this particular family member would show up often, like sometimes daily, and plop themselves down. They would let themselves in, plop themselves down on the couch and want to talk, and then be angry with me when I wouldn't talk. When I would keep the kids going, keep making lunch, diaper a child, play with my kids. This person kept saying things like, why don't you just put a video on for them? Or they can play themselves. Or, well, you already made lunch. Why do they need a snack? Or you can just do that project later. And I finally had to sit down and say, you can't come over between the hours of 9 and 1. You cannot come over between those hours. I will have my door locked and bolted inside. So you can't let yourself in, and I will ignore the knocking, the doorbell, and the phone. Because this person was not respecting the whole idea, the whole thought of us homeschooling, and that we had something going on, and figured that we could just be there. At the time, I was also actively freelance writing. I was writing for textbook companies. I was writing chapters in science textbooks for elementary school children, and I was writing magazine articles and all sorts of other things. And my livelihood depended on those gig paychecks. I needed to get the next assignment, and in order to get the next assignment, I needed to follow through on the assignments that I was getting to a T and within deadline, preferably earlier than deadline. And so I couldn't stop what I was doing to talk to this person and, hang out or, make coffee or whatever anytime they dropped by, because some of the time they dropped by was during the 2-hour block I set aside for myself to work to meet my deadlines. And some of the times they dropped by were during the time when I had projects or activities planned for my kids. And so I needed to set those boundaries and stick with them. And I did. And it was hard for a while. Standing up to for your boundaries is hard for a while. And it's often hardest on the boundary setter. It's usually hardest on the boundary setter, because somebody who doesn't respect boundaries will keep pushing and pushing and pushing. Having people drop by when you're homeschooling because you're home is a unique problem that homeschooling parents have, that also work at home families have or people have. And so you have to be able to make sure that you are standing up for those boundaries and setting them and communicating them clearly and then sticking with them. That means don't answer the texts during the day. Have your ringer off. Don't check social media. Do those things. If you're a working mom, another hard thing is, a working homeschool mom, another hard thing for you to face is the blurring of the lines between your professional and your personal life, and then where homeschooling fits in, right? Because I have an office at home. I write books. I do speaking events. What else do? I do a lot of things. I podcast. I run a membership community and teach live classes in that and master classes for parents. I do all sorts of work things. And my work is always here, and there is always something else I can do. If you're a writer and you write books, there's always a new idea. In fact, the other day I was writing down a whole bunch of ideas that were coming to mind for like a next book and a next book. And so there's always work I could do. There's always something I could pick up. There's always something I could get ahead on. And so those lines blur often, and we need to make sure that we are not blending them too much or leaning too heavily on one or the other. We're not going so far into the fun stuff, the playing with our kids, going for walks, doing all of the things, and forgetting about our work, especially if we depend on it for our livelihood, or going so far in on your work because it's just always there that we're forgetting, like, our kids are only kids for a short amount of time, and we made the commitment to homeschool them, and we want to give them the best opportunity possible. And so we need to make sure that we are holding those spaces, we're not blurring the lines, and we are making sure we have boundaries. A really great book, and it is the book that started me down the whole kind of learning experience about boundaries, is called Boundaries: When to Say Yes, How to Say No to Take Control of Your Life by Henry Cloud and John Townsend. A Christian book, Christian-based book. So I liked that part of it. If you would prefer a secular book, then this would not be the book for you. And I would then go do a search and see if you can find a secular boundaries book. I don't know one offhand because this is the book that I really liked. There is a series, really, actually, since the original Boundaries book, Boundaries, sold millions and millions of copies. They have come out, Henry Cloud and John Townsend have come out with other books related to boundaries in different areas of your life. Boundaries in marriage, boundaries with kids, boundaries in dating. There's boundaries workbooks, boundaries for leaders, boundaries with teens, all sorts of different ones. And so you can find one for you. If you're interested in that topic, I highly recommend the first one. And those all are available on audiobooks, so you can do that as well. We'll link to all of those in the show notes. But it's really important to set those boundaries, because when we don't set them, when we don't have clear boundaries and all of the areas of our life are bleeding into each other, we end up feeling disorganized. We end up feeling worried and stressed and like we're never getting anything done, and we're always putting out fires. And that leads to health issues. Stress can be physical and really do some damage to us, and we don't want to allow that to happen. And so it's important that we recognize that we have to set boundaries, we set them, and we stick with them so we can stay healthy mentally, physically, and emotionally. Some of the areas that we really want to make sure that we set boundaries and where it's crucial is time management, how we manage the time that we have, because we all only have a certain number of hours in a day, right? Our personal space, our social interactions. And some of that can include our interactions with other people. Sometimes, I don't know about you, but I live in an area where there are lots and lots and lots of good homeschool things to do. There are field trip groups, there are co-ops, my kids are in a horse class, they have fine arts classes during the day, there's community theater, there's after-school activities. There's so much we could do. There are so many things we can do, and we just have to say no. We have to set time and group activities. We have to set those areas. And when the kids were little, and I will tell you, those of you who have younger kids, it feels hard when you have younger kids. It feels hard when you have teens as well. Every stage of the game of parenting and homeschooling has a different kind of flavor to it and a different hard. When kids are young, they are busy and inquisitive and talkative and in your face all the time, and they need so much help and support. That's the hard, the nitty-gritty details of every day. What's easier and makes setting boundaries a little bit more clear-cut is that you get to define your schedule. You get to sign your kids up for groups and activities, and you get to say, hey, will this benefit all of us? Well, then we're not going to do it. And so you can be an all-in or an all-out person for your kids. We joined co-ops, we joined playgroups, we joined things that fit all of our kids' ages when we were young, or when my kids were young. We had a membership to the Great Lakes Science Center in Cleveland, primarily because that was the place when I had a 12-year-old down to a 2-year-old. There was something for all of the ages to do. And so that's where I spent my money, and that's where we spent our time. Now that the kids are older, it is impossible to get them involved in activities that benefit all. Molly and Logan don't want to be in the same acting classes, and they can't be. They're at completely different levels. So Molly is getting one-on-one coaching, and Logan is taking a group class that Molly took several years ago. Isaac doesn't want to do any acting. He just doesn't. He's done a little bit of it, and he did it reluctantly. He did it well, but it's just not something he loves to do. So he joined a hip-hop class, and he's really enjoying that. I had him and Logan both enroll in this horse class for this fall, or for this year, and he does not love it. He is not an animal person. And so next year, I had him stick with it for this whole year, not because I had to, because it's quarter by quarter, but because he really just needed to get out of the house. It's a safe environment. His sister is there, and it gets him outside for 2 hours every week, when sometimes that kid does not want to get out. And so he's sticking with it, but I'm not going to have him take it again next year. But guess what? Logan will, because she loves it and she wants to do something with animals. And so I'll have to find something else for Isaac. That means I'm sitting and waiting a lot. That means I'm sitting in parking lots. My husband picked up my daughter. Well, my daughter had rehearsal, and rehearsal for her spring musical is about 40 minutes away from us. And she's got great friends, good kids who go to that school that she works with. And it was my husband's day to do the pickup. So he got there early, and he was helping them with some stage building, set building. And after rehearsal, it was 7:00, and pretty much most of the cast wanted to go to this ice cream place that's in walking distance, because a bunch of the seniors that had graduated last year, so freshmen in college, were back for spring break and had come to watch their rehearsal and hang out. And so they wanted to spend some time together. And so my husband, of course, said, absolutely, go ahead, go spend an hour at the ice cream shop. I'll make some calls and hang out here in the parking lot. And he did. And he texted me that he was, sitting there, and I'm like, welcome to my world, because he rarely has to do that. And I do that all the time. And he's like, yep. And I said, it's so hard not to agree, though, because it's a great group of kids, and it's a nice way to give my 16-year-old some freedom. And he wrote back right away, I absolutely agree, which is why I'm sitting here making calls and texting in a dark parking lot for the next hour while she is having ice cream with her friends. And so we need to, when our kids get older, the boundaries have to shift a little bit. There have been days where she's wanted to do something, and because of other circumstances, the boundary has been set. This is not a day for it. The next time I'm able to let you go, I will. And so we need to know that putting boundaries around our time management, our personal space and what we need, our work, our homeschool, our social interactions are important, and we can establish them. But sometimes we have to give a little bit, and they're going to change within our kids' growth and development. Okay, but how?
Is that what you're thinking? Because I think it all the time. How do you set those boundaries? How do you get the person to stop coming over and ringing your doorbell again and again and again because they know you're home? How do you get people to understand that you can't go out for coffee anytime, or you have to sit in the parking lot waiting for your kid? How do you get people to understand this? And how do you get your kid to understand that sometimes we can't do things and sometimes we can? So first, we need to think about, especially as busy homeschool parents, we have to think about our time management skills. And this is where executive function comes in. I'm working on a series for Homeschooling Today magazine, and they have quarterly issues. The next issue, I believe it's the spring issue, comes out soon, and I just finished an article for it. It's like an intro to executive function skills, and then the next 3 issues, so the whole 4 issues for the year will have this series, will deal with other aspects of executive function skills, and we struggle with it. If you've got neurodivergent kids and you're neurodivergent yourself, you likely struggle with executive function skills and organizing your time management. But if you homeschool your children and you work, and if you homeschool your children and you don't work, you need to get a handle on your time management. And that means making sure you're protecting the time that you need to do your meal planning, do your grocery shopping, do your errands, clean your house, and get the kids involved in it. And make sure there's time for work that's dedicated, and make sure there's time for each of your kids. And so you might not be able to do this, each thing, every single day, and that's okay. Some seasons require paper plates and prepackaged meals, and some are more conducive to cooking from scratch. And that's it. We need to remember that's important to be able to give ourselves that grace. But one thing we can do that's tangible and actionable right now is we can create a calendar. I will tell you right now, I struggle with time management. I struggle with organizing because my brain is a creative brain. It is all over the place, and it has a million different ideas. And I will forget I'm going to do something within 5 minutes of telling somebody I'm going to do something, so I have to write it down. I also have to write it down with paper to pen and pen to paper or pencil or whatever, because I need that tactile kinesthetic act to get it to stick in my brain. I also need to write it down in multiple places. I have a calendar on my phone. I have a whiteboard calendar that shows 12 months at a glance that I change out every time a month ends. So I always have 12 months at a glance. So this month is March. When March is over, I will erase March 2024 and I'll put March 2025. So I can always see a year at a glance. And I also have a paper calendar. We have a calendar. It's like one of those desk calendars. I have magnets on the back of it, and it sticks to the side of our refrigerator. And I write things down on all 4 of those calendars. That way, reminders pop up on my phone. When I'm sitting at my desk, I can look at the wall in front of me, and I can see the things that are going on at a glance because they're all color-coded. If I'm going somewhere, I can bring my paper calendar. If I'm going somewhere and that's too cumbersome and I don't want to bring it, I at least have things on my phone. And then others can see what's going on because I have it color-coded in the kitchen too. You need to do what works for you, and you need to set some goals and build a schedule, or at the very least, write things down. You also need to set time aside to take care of yourself, because when you're healthy, you do this better. You need to communicate with your kids. Talk to them about the importance of boundary setting. Like I said, this is the theme for April in the Learners Lab in 2024 as I'm recording this episode. And we will be talking about this. We will be helping kids understand why, from all ages, from little tots all the way to teens at their levels, why it's important to set boundaries and how we can do that effectively and kindly with others, and then how we can stick to them even when it gets hard, even when something cool comes up that we want to do, but we know it doesn't fit within the boundary that we set for ourselves. How can we do that? When we talk to our kids about things like this, we give them the benefit of understanding where we're coming from, why we're saying no, why we're saying yes, why some things are easy yeses and some things we have to think about a little bit, and then we build communication skills. But the best and biggest benefit to talking with your kids about setting these boundaries, building a schedule, identifying what's important to them, and tapering down from there, and being able to say yes to the things that they really want to do, and no to things that might still be good but don't fit in or fuel the things that are most important to them to really affect those boundaries. The best thing about this is we are modeling for them. We're modeling for them how to be healthy adults with strong boundaries. We're giving them guidance. We're helping them see that they should not, as adults, feel guilty about taking time for themselves or enforcing rules or saying no to other people even though somebody else really wants something. It helps abolish that people pleasing. It was really hard for me to say no to that family member, really hard. But I am so glad I did, because sometimes my kids will say to me, can you help me come up with a good reason I have to say no to not going over to this person's house today? And I will. I'll help them, because I'm happy to be the bad guy if they need the personal space and they are not mature enough socially or emotionally to be able to just say no. If they are working towards setting their boundaries, I want to help facilitate that. And so we can do that by showing them us setting boundaries and then giving them support and showing them how to set their own boundaries. Here's the thing. Setting a boundary that you're going to stick with. This is when I do homeschool, so I'm not going to answer the phone. This is when my kids need me most, so I'm not going to be on social media. I want to go do this thing with my kids, so I'm not going to take work with me, and I'm not going to open my phone. This is the time I spent to be with my friend, so I'm going to let my husband handle the calls that come from my kids, and I'm going to tell my children if they need something, talk to dad. Those are all great boundaries that we can set. They keep us healthy. They keep us calm. They help us get time for all of the things we want and need to do, so we're nice and well-rounded people and we have good support systems. And it's important for our long-term health. It's important for us to model for our kids so they have the long-term support as they grow and they know how to be adults who stand up for themselves so that they can do all the things that they want to do. I'll tell you right now, when we share with our kids these healthy ways of saying no, these healthy ways of taking care of ourselves, these healthy ways of identifying what's important, fueling the stuff that's important, and dropping the things, whether it's for a time or forever, that aren't as important, we are setting them up for success in the future that is going to be so incredibly valuable, more so than anything else we can do for them. Them seeing us practice what we preach, do what we tell them to do, and do it well, and then supporting them in the process gives them the tools they need to be adults who have control of their lives, know that they are taking responsibility for themselves, their feelings, their problems. They're being loving people while still setting limits. And they're managing their life. They're managing their digital life. They're managing their social life, their family life, and their work life so it doesn't control them. You're doing it and leading by example. And in doing that, you are being exactly who you're meant to be, the parent your child needs, so they can be the best version of themselves as they grow. You've got this. You can do this. And your kids are going to thrive. If you want more support when it comes to setting boundaries for your homeschool, for your own life, with your kids, teaching your kids how to set boundaries, then this would be a great time to join the Learners Lab. It's open right now, just temporarily. So you could head over to raisinglifelonglearners.com and click on the big blue button that says Learners Lab and learn all about it there. We're going to be shutting it down again soon because we're going to be working on some heavy duty stuff in there and some fun stuff as well. We've got a couple new clubs going for the kids, Doodling Club and Lego Club. The kids have meetups each week. And so I want to be able to really focus on the members. So it is open right now. You can get in before the beginning of April and join in on this theme of setting boundaries for kids. On the first Wednesday of the month in April is when we'll do the kids class live. But even if you miss that or you're not able to be there for the live class, within a couple days the replay is put up so you can watch it at your leisure with your kids. There's replays for everything we've done in the past and everything we do going forward. So when you get in there, you can binge if you want, or you can just do that particular month's activity and then keep going forward with us. But boundaries is the theme for April. I think it's a super important theme for homeschooling families. And so I'd love to see you in there. You can check it out over on the show notes for this episode. You'll also find links to all the different resources I talked about, along with a link to a voicemail widget and to my contact page, which goes to my email address. I'd love to know how you set boundaries in your home, in your homeschool, with your work, parenting, homeschooling life, and what that looks like for you. any lessons you've learned over the years, like what balance is and isn't. And yeah, I would just love to hear from you. And if there's a topic like boundaries you would like to hear more about, please drop that in the voicemail or the email as well. I'd love to hear about that. All right. I hope you have a great week. We'll be back next week with a really great interview. Same time, same place. And I'd love for you to go out and enjoy your kids. Set some boundaries. Each day, a boundary, a time boundary around a chunk of space and time that you just go all in on your kids. Help them feel loved. Let them know you're there for them. And have fun. I'll see you soon. I'll talk to you next week. Bye for now. Have a good one. Thanks for being here.